Internet, it's Monica, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that is quite the hot button issue on book Twitter recently, and that is getting rid of books. So if you have a Netflix account, you might be familiar with a new show that has come out that has sparked quite the bit of a debate, which is Marie Kondo's Tidying Up. In the show, Marie Kondo, who is probably most famously known for her book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, which is basically a book that gives you helpful tips for being tidy and cleaning up your life. And this show basically follows that same sort of idea. It's basically her going to people's houses and helping them, like, get rid of stuff. You might be asking yourself, how could a show like this be the cause of so much controversy? Well, you and me both, fam. So recently I actually got rid of the vast majority of my books. I will say like probably 90% of my books are now gone. And this is between both my home in Pennsylvania and my apartment here. I just didn't want to be burdened with so much stuff, especially books. I've moved across country with a huge pack of books before, and it's not fun. It's actually pretty miserable. And especially when you live the kind of life I live, where you move every couple of years, it's just a lot. Like, you can't own a ton of books. Like, you just can't, you know. And I kind of had to have a moment over Christmas where I had to like realize, like, what is my goal with all these books? Like, am I keeping them because I think I have to have them for like BookTube? Am I keeping them because I eventually want this huge library? And I was just like, neither of those reasons are compelling enough to hold on to them all. Like, I'm not gonna reread most of them, and they would just be much better off in the hands of other people who might read them. This show comes out, and it actually, like, it really made me feel a lot better about this process. It just made me feel really good about just like looking at all of the like books that I own and kind of being a little ruthless about it, and just keeping the ones that I really want to take with me into my future. And I really valued that. I thought it was really helpful. A lot of people on the internet did not. So spoiler alert, if you're looking for an unhaul video, that's not this. I got rid of like 6 bags of books, and it's just sort of like every single one of them I would just hold up and say like, it didn't spark joy for me or something, you know? So just didn't seem necessary. But I still wanted to talk about like this topic because I've been thinking about it a lot since it, like, all of this discussion has sort of coincided with me actually getting rid of so many books. And I also, before I dive into this, I want to say that I recognize that this conversation is tinged with quite a bit of privilege. Owning books, being able to buy books is a privilege. And I say that as someone who grew up very poor, and I don't mean like couldn't afford Starbucks this week poor. I mean like legitimately like way below the poverty line, grew up on food stamps and welfare poor. And so for me growing up, buying books was the biggest of splurges. It was such a rarity. It was something that was such a treat. Being able to buy a book was exciting, and it wasn't something that I could do monthly, maybe annually. I want to recognize that. I want to recognize that like buying books is a privilege, and it's one that like as a teen, as a child, it was not one that I had at my disposal, and it's very new to me to be able to do that. And I think that's part of why I kind of went so overboard. I think because it was like suddenly I was sort of in control of my own finances, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna buy all the books because I like had this childhood where that's all I ever wanted to do. And so to finally be able to do that was like really exciting and empowering for me. But I think I had to have a moment recently where I was like, you know what, like owning this many books physically, it's not necessary for me, and it's not bringing me joy in the way that it did when I was a kid, because in a lot of ways it's sort of like collecting books just to have them, and not because they bring my life value. Not that books don't bring me value, but just like having them sitting there staring at me doesn't bring me value. So this show, Marie Kondo, really helped me with that too. It helped me feel less guilt about like letting books go, about like being able to like thank them for what they gave me, and then being able to pass them along so they can sort of continue, have a like bigger life than just, you know, living on my shelf. And I love that. What I've found really interesting is the pushback that has gotten. Like, I've literally seen her compared to Fahrenheit 451. I've seen people call her a monster because she has suggested that, you know, because she has said that she doesn't like to own that many books, and because she like advocates for people to get rid of things that they don't need, which I feel like people have decided to take Marie Kondo's words and like twist them in a lot of ways and turn them into like her saying that you shouldn't own a lot of books, or that if you own a lot of books you're not tidy. And it's like the exact opposite. Literally, I wrote down this quote: "The point of this process isn't to force yourself to eliminate things. It's really to confirm how you feel about each and every item that you possess." And I love that. I think that's beautiful. I think that's brilliant. I think so much of like, especially like the American culture, is that it puts so much value on owning things. And that's like how you sort of gained value as a person, is by buying things and sort of buying into this like consumerist culture. And I think that that isn't good. And I think questioning that is not a bad thing. And I think questioning how buying books fits into that is also not a bad thing. But also, in the show, in her book, in her words that she said in interviews, she says like, when someone says to you like, oh, you should get rid of books, if your reaction to that is like being upset or feeling like threatened, then you shouldn't get rid of your books. Like, clearly they are something that brings value to your life, that you want to actively own. And like that's all she's asking of people. It's just like to, instead of passively own things, to be more intentional about the things that you allow into your life. It's really jarring to me the reaction that this has gotten. Like, there have been multiple articles, I've seen multiple tweets like angry at her, totally making things up. There was one, I was actually really annoyed because it was like Lauren Duca, who is this like journalist that I followed for a while and like really respected, quote tweeted or shared this image of Marie Kondo with a fake quote about how you should not own more than 30 books. And I was just like, this is a literal lie. Like, you're spreading a literal lie. And it's hard for me to not think that it is like subconsciously a race thing, that it's subconsciously a xenophobia thing. Because I think that if Marie Kondo was a white American woman or British woman espousing the great things about the exotic Zen Buddhism, you know, religion, and getting people to clean their spaces, I don't think it would have this kind of reaction. I can't help but feel like maybe that is part of it, because it just doesn't seem rational. Like, the anger with which people have reacted to someone just saying like, hey, maybe think about if you need to actually own all those things and just be more intentional about the things that you choose to buy and own. Like, the anger to that concept is wild to me. And it's, you know, also part of me thinks that it is kind of a cultural thing. Again, I think the US, America, we put a lot of value on buying things. And so the show in some ways is kind of a threat to that culture. I don't know. I just have a lot of thoughts about it. I kind of wanted to just discuss it with you guys, get your thoughts on it. I got rid of a lot of books because that was something that I wanted to do. I want to put out there that I don't think that owning a lot of books is a bad thing. Like, I think if you want shelves and shelves of beautiful books, that's wonderful. That's amazing. For me, it doesn't work. For me, it doesn't bring me joy. And so, you know, I just don't want to be part of that anymore. Does this mean I won't be doing book hauls on my channel? No, because I still buy books. I just don't buy them with the intent of owning them forever. I buy them with the intent of reading them and then eventually passing them along to other readers. But I'm trying to sort of shift my view of why I buy books or why I keep books. As like, if I'm keeping a book long term, then it's because I want it with me in the future. It's either a book that I plan on reading this year, or it's a book that I've read already and I know I'm gonna reread, or it's a book I'm holding on to because I know I want to pass it along to a friend. Other than that, I'm not holding on to books anymore. And that's just a personal choice that I've made. I've also, like, I've never been one to have the big bookcases behind me. I've tried that a few times, but it just has never been my thing. I don't even know if I'd call myself a booktuber. I feel like half my content isn't book content, so it's not as important to me to have that sort of like branding of like a ton of books behind me. And I also want to put it out there that if you want to be a booktuber, if you are a booktuber who can't have all of that, you know, you can't have, you know, a beautiful selection of books behind you, that's okay. Like, you don't need that to be a booktuber. You don't need that to talk about books on the internet. That's just aesthetics, and it's pretty, but you know, you can do whatever you want to do and whatever makes you happy. You don't have to have piles of books in order to like justify yourself as a book lover. And that was something that I also have noticed like in this Twitter discussion, and it's none of this is coming from like other booktubers, by the way. It's all from like the book academia world, I feel like. So none of these people are gonna watch this video, but I feel like such a huge part of it is like so many of them view owning books as like the hallmark of being a book lover. Like, if you don't own a ton of books, have a huge library, if you don't put value on that, then you're not a real reader. And I hate that. I hate that idea. Like, I love my library. I love digital books. I love audiobooks. I love books that aren't pretty. I love passing on books to friends. Like, the idea that in order to be a reader, you have to have a huge library is absurd to me. And I hate that. I hate that that is like an idea that like so many bookish people have. And I'm not saying that that's an idea on BookTube, but it's very much so something that I see a lot in like the literary fiction world and the academic fiction or academic literature world. And I hate it. I hate that like pretentiousness that is like ableist and also like hella privileged. I don't know. What are all of your thoughts on all of this? I just needed to rant for a minute because I think Marie Kondo is great, and I think if she is helping people, you know, take a step back and think about like, do I need to own all this stuff? I think that that's not a bad thing. I think that that is ultimately a good thing. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with hauling and owning a ton of books. I think that's great if that's something that you're able to do. It's just not something I'm able to do, and it's not something that brings me joy. And ultimately, I think this comes down with people not being able to mind their own business, you know? Like, if someone else decides to clean their house, why should that anger you? I truly don't understand. Maybe one of you can explain to me why there's so much anger about this, because I don't get it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. I don't know if you've like been following along with all the backlash. It's like, at first people liked the show, and then there was backlash against the show because she threatened people's books, which she didn't. And then there was backlash against the backlash, which is like, I think the stage we're in right now. It's all just a lot. Like, it's so extra for something that is so trivial, but here we are. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye!